All right, so welcome back to the third part of this series on economic problems. And now we are going to look at the problem of the distribution of wealth. As I said, the distribution of wealth or the lack of distribution of the same is a major problem in fighting poverty. And things have got worse after COVID-19. So this is a report that I'd like you to have a look at, and then we are going to continue with the discussion. But first, let's look at this report. And Oxfam is a very prestigious organization which releases data on wealth and other economic issues. Let's have a look at what they have to say.
Super rich keep getting richer. That's part of the findings from a new report on inequality. According to Oxfam, the world's 10 richest people now own around $1.5 trillion. The pandemic has been a billionaire bonanza because the 10 richest men have doubled their income in the last 2 years. So that accumulation at the top is that in contrast with the majority of the 99% of humanity being worse off as a result of the pandemic. The charity says the world's 10 richest people have boosted their fortunes by $15,000 a second or $1.3 billion a day during the pandemic. At the same time, global inequality is contributing to the death of one person every 4 seconds. Oxfam says more than 160 million people have been plunged into poverty since the start of the pandemic. To counter this growing inequality, the charity is urging governments to impose a temporary wealth tax of up to 99% to fund vaccines for the poor, universal health care, and social protections.
So this is the situation. The situation has really got worse after the outbreak of this pandemic, and these people have simply become rich and richer. Okay, and uh, if you were to distribute the wealth of 38 richest people in the world among all the human beings, 3 billion people will never go hungry. I mean, the distribution of wealth is so unjust, and it's so unethical. I mean, these things need to be now looked at. If biology can be looked at from an ethical point of view, bioethics, then why can economics not be looked at from the same angle? Why can't you have uh, eco-ethics or economic ethics? I mean, this is something that people should think about. Anyway, so Pakistan has its own share of very rich people, and this is one country of the world where the distribution of income is low. Distribution of income is not good, and on the other hand, national income is also low. So at least in the United States, you can say that national income is high, distribution of income is bad. By the way, American cities are known as donut cities. They have sometimes been called as donut cities. Very rich on the peripheries, but the center is very hollow. So I don't know. We cannot even call ourselves donut cities because there is a lot of poverty everywhere, and people simply don't want to recognize it. But not recognizing wouldn't mean that it'll just go away. Now, please keep one thing in mind. I'm not one of those people who suggests that we should not spend on defense. No, I'm not saying that. Okay, you need to spend on defense judiciously, because spending on defense also brings about economic development. That's from the economic point of view. But if you don't spend on defense, especially a country like Pakistan, you will be at the mercy of your enemies. And you know what happens when you're at the mercy of your enemies. Ukraine, look at it, what's going on. And Germany, one country which neglected its defense, is now spending a lot of money on. From next year, they're going to spend a lot of money on defense. So this does not mean that defense spending should be reduced, but defense spending should be done very judiciously to increase the arsenal of strategic weapons, and also fuel economic growth. Because do keep in mind, it is economic growth that fuels military power. All right, so that is for another discussion. Let's look at the richest people in Pakistan. The 10th richest person in Pakistan is considered to be Diwan Yusuf Farooqi. When you hear the name Diwan, you think of Diwan Motors, you think of the Diwan Company Group. He's the 10th richest person in Pakistan, estimated wealth 300 for 590 million US dollars. The eighth richest person, by the way, I'm not going to talk about all the 10. We're just taking the important ones because I realize that we do not have a lot of time. The eighth richest person in the country is Tariq Segal with a net worth or a wealth of zero point 0.6 billion United States dollars. Then there is, of course, Rafiq Habib. We can't ignore him. He's the seventh richest person in the country with 0.95 billion. He's the owner of Habib Bank and Bank Al Habib, among other companies. And then, of course, we have Abdul Razak Yaqub, ARY. He's the fifth richest person in the country with $1 billion um, worth of assets. He started a small shop in the 1970s in Dubai, and today he's the owner of all these different channels and gold and real estate and all those things. But the real estate mogul in the country now is Malik Riaz, who started his career in the 1970s as a clerk, and he is now, by the way, I think he's the richest realtor in Asia. And his flagship project, of course, is the Behriya Town projects. Sadruddin Hashwani's name goes with the hoteling industry. Third richest person in Pakistan with $3.4 billion. Richest man in the country is thought to be Mia Mansha. He's the owner of MCB, EFU, Nishat Group, and other groups. A lot of things. His net worth or his wealth is estimated to be 3.7 billion United States dollars. There is a lot of difference between the lifestyle of the rich and the poor in the country. Just have a look at this. Just have a look at the uh, the dresses. What is the worth of one dress? What is the worth of one wedding dress that the rich wear? I don't know. I am not in any way suggesting that the rich, being rich, is something wrong. I'm not suggesting that. All I'm saying is that the distribution of wealth should be more equitable. This is how many poor people have breakfast in the morning. So, the dual problem of Pakistan, as I told you, is low GDP, low, you're not generating income, and secondly, whatever you're generating, you are just concentrating it in a few hands, and that is a very miserable situation. And that was not the way Jinnah envisioned it. The Qaid Azam envisioned it in 1947 when he established 1948, by the way, 1st of July 1948, when he established the State Bank of Pakistan. He wanted Pakistan to have a system where uh, wealth was distributed equitably. Please do keep in mind, Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a rich man. I mean, personally, he was rich, but he did not favor either a Marxist system or a capitalist system. Uh, he wanted a system in which the poor people were looked after. And this is a small excerpt from a small clip from the video where he inaugurates the State Bank of Pakistan. Let's have a look, then we will discuss.
कायदे आजम के तदब्बर और इंतजामी सलाहियतों के बायस 1 साल से कम अरसे में पाकिस्तानी मीशत इस काबिल हो गई कि हुकूमत अपना मरकजी बैंक कायम कर सके। 1 जुलाई 1948 को बाबा कौम कायदे आजम मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान का इफ्तिताह कर तशरीफ लाए। अपने इफ्तिताही तकरीब में कायदे आजम ने फरमाया कि मगरब के माशी निजाम ने इंसानियत के लिए लायतल मसाइल पैदा कर दी हैं। हमें एक मिसाली माशी निजाम पेश करना है जो इंसानी मसावत और माशरती इंसाफ के सच्चे इस्लामी तसव्वुरात पर कायम हो। ऐसा निजाम पेश करके हम मुसलमानों की हैसियत से अपना फर्ज अंजाम देंगे और इंसानियत को सच्चे और सही अमन का पैगाम देंगे। सिर्फ ऐसा अमन ही इंसानियत को जंग की हौलनाकियों से बचा सकता है और बनी नोए इंसान की खुशी और खुशहाली का ज़ामिन हो सकता है। इसके बाद कायदे आजम ने स्टेट बैंक के दरवाजे का कुफ्ल खोलकर रस्मी इफ्तिताह अंजाम दिया। कायदे आजम की जिंदगी की ये आखिरी नवाबी तकरीब थी।
So, in those days, the economy of Pakistan was controlled from India by the Reserve Bank of India. So their central bank was called Reserve Bank. Our central bank is, of course, the State Bank. And the inauguration ceremony of this State Bank is very interesting. Normally, what you do is you cut a ribbon, or what you do is that you unveil a plaque to inaugurate a certain project. Qaid Azam did none of that. There was a door and there was a lock on the door. He simply unlocked it, opened the door, and that was the beginning of the State Bank of Pakistan. It was so symbolic. It was so symbolic. This was the opening. This was the start. This was the beginning. It was the beginning of a new age. This was the beginning of a time of prosperity and equitable distribution of income. This was a time when wealth will no longer be hidden behind doors and behind walls. It will be distributed equitably to the ordinary people through the mechanism of central banking. It was so symbolic. The Qaid was sending such a strong message. He also sent a strong message in the speech he made that day. He said, "Look, you Muslims were not in the banking sector in India for the last 900 years. It did not matter whether the government in India was Muslim or non-Muslim. No, the Muslims were not powerful in the financial sector. Secondly, he said, look, stabilize prices that are fair to the producer as well as the consumer. The main stakeholders are not the government. Please try and understand. In an economic system, they're not the government. It's not the government which is the stakeholder. It is not the landowners who are the stakeholder. No, the main stakeholders are the consumer and the producer. The prices should be fair to them. And he regretted the fact that the cost of living in the country was going up. He could have said that, look, we have achieved so much in the last 1 year and there have been problems. But he said, no, he openly accepted that, look, there was a problem. Inflation was going up and he did not like it. He said, I will keep a close eye on how the state bank would fight inflation. And he said, look, in the end, I do not want a capitalist system and I do not want a Marxist system. I want a system based on Islamic principles where justice is done between man and man. All right, the Islamic concept of equality and manhood and social equality between manhood and social justice. This is what I'm espousing. This is what I'm interested in. In the next video, we are going to look at the extent to which we've been able to follow the instructions given by the Qaid Azam that day. Unfortunately, the poorest people in the country live in live in very sorry conditions. And we are going to have a look. Our students have made a small video on that. We're going to have a look uh, about how people in our cities are living. And then we will conclude by talking about the economic vision of Islam, because that is what the Qaid Azam stressed that day. He wanted a vision based on Islamic teachings of equality and social justice. All right, thank you very much, and please stay tuned for the last